Hey, the 6-bolt and Von Doom's lab. So this is Hook of the Reaper release 1.2.8. So this is a pretty actually big release. So I did a lot of stuff in this release. Actually, if you kind of go through all this, it's a lot of stuff. So I actually had to try to keep notes of everything I did and all that. I probably still didn't probably get it all in there, but yeah. Okay, so let's go first start off with the bugs. So the first one was regular lights are not checked against RGB lights and vice versa. So this is when it's reading the group file. So you shouldn't have regular lights having the same pin as RGB lights. It should be like a violation, and it should be checking for that. So it wasn't checking for that, but now I put it in for Hook of the Reaper version 1.2.8. And as you can see here, I have, I put a lot of stuff in here to remember. So I think it's down here, regular lights are not checked with RGB lights. So that was kind of an easy one to do. Okay. So the next bug is do the same checks on the group file as when you are creating the group file. So this is one of the things where I said it's probably best to delete it than redo the whole light controller. And kind of some of that is because I first thought like Hook of the Reaper should assume like the group file is not changing, right? You shouldn't close it, change things, and open it, but that's not really happening. So I put it back in. I changed it. Then also is when I first load up, the light controller is on a different thread. So I need, before I can do like a pop-up air pop-up window, I need to hook everything up. So when I create it, it kind of loads everything up. But so I had to do like extra like loading and checking and all that after I hook up the threads air pop-up window. So that should, now it's fixed in 1.2.8. So now it does all the checking. If you close it and open it, if you hit the edit button, it should be doing all the checking too. So now that should be taken care of. So that's fixed in 1.2.8. So I think that was the other bug. Do the same checks as when creating it. Okay. Do light controller or do light color checks when game or default file is loaded with the hook light engine. So it was being checked when the light command was being used. So when you're using like a RGB command, it was checking the color when the command was being run. So that's not the best. So my philosophy is do all the checking when you load up the file. So then you know everything is good, then you can run everything fast as possible in the game. So when it's doing the loading up in the beginning, it's you're not really too worried because you're just getting into the game, you're loading up the game. So you have time to do all those checks. Then it's a lot better to do it then than while you're playing the game. So, and also, I don't think people might not were hearing it or seeing the air. Hearing it because you have the recoil going on, you have the game sounds going on, so you might not hear that air kind of sound from Windows. And also seeing it because you have the game full screen most of the time as people play it. So I don't think that was why people were hearing it. But now in the beginning, you can hear it because there's the game's loading up and there's no noise or anything. So this is fixed in 1.2.8, and also I added in color maps in there too. So it does color, it checks the color, and color maps are checked when the game and default file is loaded now. So I don't know if I had a bug for that one or not. Oh yeah, here it is. Do light color checks right here. Then the last one is add light command to turn off all lights. So I kind of put this in the bug section because it should be there. I should have a command that turn off all the lights that can be used anytime to make sure all the lights are off. And I can put this in two places to make sure all the lights are turned off. As I know, like drive makers, when you close the game, they're close Hook of the Reaper. And when I didn't have it in there, because I thought all the commands would shut off all the lights at the end, but I think sometimes the drive makers will shut down Hook of the Reaper before it can do that. So what I did is I added the turn lights off and the deconstructor of the class. So when you're closing it out, closing the class out, the deconstructor runs. So now the deconstructor will turn off all the lights when it's closed. So if the drive makers are closing Hook of the Reaper, now it should shut off all the lights when it shuts off, right? Because it's now in with the deconstructor. And also and that's kind of why I put it more in the bug section too. And also I added a new light command called turn off all lights. So there's no arguments with it. You need to put like one group in it, but it works on all the groups. And it works with, even if you have a mix of RGB and regular, it just shuts everything down in the light controller. So this is kind of useful with main stop, because main stop happens when things are closing out when the game stops. So it'd probably be a good thing to put that in for main stop if you're kind of doing stuff and if you have lights on after you close the game. So those were the bugs. So they're pretty quick and easy to go through. Okay, so let's move on to the enhancements now. So the first one, I know last time I got the Xgunner mouse in joystick mode, mouse keyboard versus joystick mode. They had new commands, but also I saw they had aspect ratio commands too that I didn't put in. So I updated the xgunner.horror file again, and it should be included with the change files too. But I actually, this time, I talked to the makers of Xgunner. So I went to the site and actually emailed them, say, hey, can you tell me if you're changing or adding commands or changing commands? And, and they said, oh, yeah, sure, we can do that. And also, they said, hey, we can also give you 2 light guns for test hardware. So that's good. It's a little weird, but so they said they can give me it, so that's really nice. So I talked to them. At least I've contacted another manufacturer because they were the ones one of the few I haven't talked to because they're over in China. But they seemed really nice and all that. So I just want to put that in there. Okay, so for the next one is change regular lights from intensity to state. And I'm pretty sure I had that in here. Move lights outputs from state value. The main reason, so I'm going to do this, it can, as you saw in the videos I put out for versus 1.2.7 versus 1.2.8, it can speed up the writes by 8 times. So it's very, very fast. So that means for pretty much every 8 pins I write to, it can be up to 8x, right? So let's say I had 32 pins. So the old way, or 32 lights, I would have to do 32 byte writes, right? Because you have to write the intensity, which is a byte, which is 0 to 255. So that's 32 writes on the USB. And the USB is a little kind of different because it's kind of, as I talked to you about, it's kind of like a train that leaves every 1 millisecond. It should be set to polling at 1 millisecond. So if I miss that 1 millisecond, there's going to be a delay of another millisecond. So if I'm doing 32 writes, yeah, I'm not going to hit every that train. So I'm probably going to do it in multiple trains to get all the data over. So every time I miss a train, it's like 1 millisecond. So you can easily get up to 10, 15 milliseconds of delay writing all to the lights. But if I go to states, I can write 8 lights at one time. So if you do 32 divided by 8, you get 4. So then that 32 writes go to 4 writes, right? Because you have intensity, like I said, you have 32 byte writes. If it's going to state, you're going to have 4 byte states, because each bit is a light. So if each bit is a light, that's 8 lights in a byte. So then 4 bytes is the 32. So that's a huge speed up. 8 times the speed up is huge. And even if it's like 34 pins, right? I still have the 4 byte writes going at 8x. Then the one for the last 2 pins, it's going to only be 2x times the speed. But still, the majority, you're getting that 8x speed up, which is huge. So now for regular lights, you don't put the intensity anymore. So you have to update all your default and game files to remove the intensity out of the commands. So now what I do is I have default brightness in the group file. So in the group file, you just go like default brightness. Then you put a space in, then you put the number in. So you go default brightness space like 255. So it has to be 1 through 255, because you put 0 in, that doesn't really make any sense. But I recommend probably using 85 or higher, because if it's not that high, the light doesn't turn on from what I've done with testing. So, and if you don't do this, if you don't put the default brightness in the group file, it will default to 255. So if you don't do anything, it just defaults to 255. If we want to bring the brightness down some, you can use the default brightness to make it a lower number. So why am I kind of doing this? So one is the huge speed up, of course. And I don't know if you ever saw like videos of like when MAME Hooker is working with recoil and people are using a lot of lights, and you can see flickering happening with those lights. And even on the testing that I showed, you can see some flickering happening. And that's because you're doing so many writes, and that USB kind of pulling delay will come in. So you're having that delay will keep some lights on. Then when you turn it off, you're going to have some other lights. So you kind of get this flickering because the lights won't come on right at one time. You have a lot of them. So this one can easily get rid of all that flickering because the speed up is so much. But the one thing, you might have to extend the time on for some things, because now you're not getting that pulling delay added in, which, like you said, if you have a lot of lights, it could be like 10 to 20 milliseconds. So you might have to add that 10 or 20 milliseconds back into time on, so it kind of gets the same way, it looks the same. And that's, like I said, because of the less pulling delay. So I hope people saw the video and probably have seen like MAME Hooker and probably other programs, that flickering that happens when you turn it on and off really fast. You get that flickering. So I just definitely wanted to try to get rid of that flickering for regular lights. So it was a lot harder to do. Because I put it in, so now you can still use regular lights with RGB. But like I said, when I have regular lights, they're converted. So what I do then is I turn the intensity to the default brightness for everything. Then I turn the state off. So I turn it on, then to turn the state off. So now the default brightness is set for all the regular lights. So then I can just use the state on and off to turn them on really quick. So that's how it's kind of set up. So it's all that bit shifting again to make it really fast. And also the help with the speed rate. That's why I did bit shifting and bit banging to help out a lot with the timing and all that. Okay, so the next one was add a test light controller window, which I have here at test. So this was very useful. So now if you look at Hook of the Reaper 1.2.8, right, now you can come here to edit, and now there's a test light controller window. So you open that up, and right now I have it set to RGB, so you'll have your controllers up here. Then what you do, you can put your group number or numbers here, so you can have multiple ones. So you can have like 0, 1, 2, and 3 if you wanted to. Then come down here is all the commands for RGB, right? So if you do flash, you'll see these arguments that are now enabled. So if I go down to like sequence now, you can see now it changes. Now you just have time delay and color, right? Then if I go to sequence color map, now it opens up the color map and time delay. So then you fill in the arguments, then you can run the command. Then it will show the lights on your lights. So now you don't have to run a game anymore to test everything out. Now you can come in, put the groups in, put the command in, if you want to do like a random flash or a random flash with a color map. You can put all the stuff in, the time on, time off, number of flashes, color map, and run the command. Only thing to make sure is if you put a time off in there, make sure before you hit the run command again, make sure the time off time off has run. So sometimes I've done that where I see the lights go on, then I hit it and it doesn't go. Then after a while I'll run again because it's doing the time off. It's running that delay of the time off. So the command has to finish before you can run the command again. So hopefully this will help out people get their timings and run the commands to see what it looks like. So now you don't have to test things out in game. So it was a little hard to do to get everything set up. And if you have like regular lights too, then you'll get the regular commands in here too. Or if you just have regular, so it's all there based on the controller. So if the controller only has RGB, it's only going to show RGB commands. If it only has regular, it's only going to show regular. And if it has both, then it's going to show both, kind of thing. But I think this will help a lot of people out just to test things and get things set up. So it was a really good addition to Hook of the Reaper. Okay. I think I went through all that. So the next enhancement was add color maps to certain RGB commands. So of course it's only going to be in RGB commands because color, that's only where you can do the colors, right? So if we look at, well, what commands do we have? So here I have a list of them. We have the random flash RGB, so you just put CM at the end. So random flash RGB CM. Then you have sequence RGBM CM and the reload RGB CM. So why not just a regular flash RGB? Well, that might take many different writes, right? If you're doing a flash with all these different colors everywhere, it could be a lot. It could not. If you're using white, you're writing to every one, so that might not be too much. But I'll probably wait until people tell me it's like, hey, I do want a flash RGB with a color map, so you can make it a whole bunch of different colors if you wanted to. But I just didn't think people probably would want it. They probably will want it more with the random flash. So if I'm more wrong with that, please tell me, and I can probably put it in. It shouldn't be too hard to put the flash RGB color map in. I just didn't think people would really want it or not. But like I said, I could be wrong. But okay, so it kind of works different between the random flash and the sequence. So if you just look at the random flash, it kind of, since it's only showing one color at a time, since it's only doing one light at a time and one color, it's more like a probability of how the color map is done. I probably should go show how you do a color map is you pretty much you define all the colors, then you say color map, you go space, the color map's name, then all the colors in it. So if I come here and go to group file, so I have updated this. So as you can see up here, I put default brightness in there. Then here I have the color maps right here. It explains how to do the color map. So you put the color map in, then you put the name, then the colors in. So if I come down here, I'll show you, here's some examples of how to do like a color map. So like the color map I was using kind of like with Alien, with the red, white, and green. It's kind of like this. So you do the color map, then you can give it a name, then you have to have at least two colors, right? Because if you only put one color in the color map, it doesn't really do anything. You can just use the color. So you got to have at least two colors. You can go up to 256 colors in the color map if you wanted to. So then you can see I have red, white, white, white. So, and also you can repeat the color too. So you can have, like down here, for the revolver, I was just testing things out. You can have green, 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 green. But just having green, why don't you just use green kind of thing? But it just depends on what you're doing. So that's how you create the color map in the group file. So now that we know how to do the color, so when you do a random flash, it will take a probability. So depending, as you saw, I had one red and three whites, right? So for the color map right here. So there's a 75% chance it's going to be white and a 25% chance of being red. So you can kind of get the probabilities of that random. So the whole thing is like you're shooting, the whole thing of random flash is kind of like you're shooting a wall and you're getting all these bullet holes, right, when you're shooting. But if you put red in, then it looks like you hit the enemy kind of thing. So like 25% of the time you're hitting the enemy. So that's kind of what it's made to look like. And also you can play around with it and do other colors. That's why in the Alien 3 I put the green in, because the alien blood is green, right? So then for the sequence RGB color map and the reload sequence color map, it just kind of lights up with the color map. So the sequence goes 1, 2, 3, 4. It just lights up the lights in sequence. But now it uses the sequence of the color map. So if you had a color map of red, green, blue, right? So the first light would be red, second light would be green, then third light will be blue. But if you had 5 lights, what happens to the last 2? Well, it just kind of wraps around. It kind of goes back. So then the 4th light will be red and the 5th light will be green. So it kind of just starts over and it kind of loops back and goes over, then loops back and goes back. So that's how the sequence works. It's a little different from the flashing. So it just does all the lights, and it just wraps back onto each other. So out of all that with the color maps, just let me know if you want me to do the regular flash RGB color map or not. So I'll do it if people want to. Like I said, it'll be pretty easy to do. Okay, so the next one is actually a little different. This actually comes from a user requested for this. So this is a method to invert the light output, right? Or the state value of the light. So the person, pretty much what they wanted to do is invert the output signal's value. So if you wanted to invert the output's signal value, you put a kind of I forget, what is it, like a tilde or the squiggly line after the output's name in the game default file. So I have an example down here with the lamp start. So here is like the normal kind of command. Then if you want to invert it, you put this little tilde at the end. So you put it at the end, then it's going to invert the data. So if the output signal value is 0, so it'll invert it to make it be 1. And if the value is greater than 0, like it's 1, 3, or 1,000, it will invert it to 0. So if you're using this, it's best to use turn off lights with the main stop command, just to make sure the light will be turned off, because if you're inverting it, the light might be on all the time. So then you want to make sure it goes off. So just so that's more if you're using this tilde to make sure you're using this turn off light command with main stop to make sure everything gets turned off. And I think that's what I got put in here. So if you come down here, you can see kind of the same thing. Then here's like main stop, turn off lights. So that was the easy one to do. It took me like about, I think 5 minutes to put in, but it took about 10 minutes to test out. But yeah, it was a little longer because I had to make sure I'm testing everything and getting everything. But that was a pretty easy one to do, and it was user requested, so it's just kind of rare. Okay, so now we're kind of getting to the last big one, the background light command. So this is kind of the last video I showed, was using the background command. That's kind of where I talked about, like in the virtual cop game, where you can see the revolver, and when you shoot, the lights kind of look like a revolver. Then when you reload, it reloads back up. So this is, right now, it's only for RGB light commands. For the next release, I'll put the regular in. So I try to do the hardest one in and get it put in. Then once everything's working, then it's easy to do the easier one. So that's why I always try to do the harder one. Then it's easier to go back on to the easy one. So like I was saying, it's used to display info to the player. So you can use it with ammo, life, or another value. Of course, if you use it with ammo, it has to be connected to the ammo signal. If you're using it for life, it has to be connected to the life signal. So right now, you can only have 4 background commands running at one time per light controller. So this is kind of, you have a maximum of 4 players in Hook of the Reaper and most light gun games. So that's why I limit it to only 4. So, and also when you make it, you only use one group light number. So when you do the pound 0 space, and you only have one number. So you have the light controller number and one group number. If you go more than that, it will air out. And that's more to, the only way to do it is more to check with the numbers and all that. So if you're using multiple groups, then it could be really exponentially hard to try to look at other groups and all that and check for things. So that's why I limit it to one group per light controller. So the new command is just background RGB. And like I said, if you tie it to ammo, it'll look for ammo. If you tie it to life, act for life, or you can tie it to a different signal. So it has at least 5 arguments with it. And I'll kind of get to the reason why it's like 5 or more. So the first argument you put in is the color map, right, for how you want the colors to go. Then the player number, because like I said, it's connected to a player. Then the next argument is time. I call it time off. So usually you have the background showing. So when a new command comes in and wants to be shown, if you turn off the background right away and show the new command, it kind of looks weird. So the best is to have like a delay. So you turn off the background so there's no lights on, then you wait for this time off period. So if you put in 20 milliseconds, it waits 20 milliseconds, then do the new command. So that's kind of why it kind of gives like a little break before you start the new command. If you don't, it's going to look really kind of weird when you do it. Then I have a time delay for the reload. So since it's looking at the ammo and life all the time, it knows, hey, a reload happened. So if you're showing ammo, you don't want to do like a reload sequence, because this one will do it automatically. So this is kind of like in a sequence, you have a delay. This is kind of the same delay that you put in. So for if you're using like 50 milliseconds for a sequence reload, then you want to put 50 milliseconds here for the time reload. Then high count is the number of lights you want to use in the group. So like I said when I did the virtual cop, I had eight lights, right? So I used all the group, but I don't want to use all the 8 lights, right? Because I only have 6 bullets, right? So high count would be 6 then. So if I put 6, it only uses the first 6 of the lights in the group. Then the last 2 lights in the group, it's not used. So then if you don't know like how many lights in the group, you can put 0 in the high count. If you put 0 in the high count, then it just automatically defaults to the number of lights in the group. So like I said, if you had 8 lights, it just defaults to 8, or you can put the high count to 8. Either way, it kind of works, right? But if you put if you only have 8 lights and you put 9 in there, it will error out kind of thing. It will error out saying, hey, you don't have that many groups. Then the last one, which is not required, is other groups. So if your group you're using for the background, then you have different groups you want to use but use the same pins as like the flash for recoil and flash for death. That's when you put the group numbers here. So then you put if you're using 0 for the group number of the background, and group 1 and 2 are the same pins that you're using for the flash, then you want to put group 1 and 2 into it too. So the best is to make the background group the highest and first groups declared in the group file. And this will make it a lot faster with checking. So if it's the first one, because it checks the pins, and if it comes back saying, hey, the first group failed, and the first group is group 0, and you're using group 0 for the background, then it goes, hey, it's the same pins, then it will run the command on the background. It'll send it to the background stuff to be run. So that's kind of why you want to make your background groups declared first, to make it the fastest, making the background work the fastest. And if we come back here, I think if I go to the game file, and of course, so I have background commands here, and you can see an example of it. So you have the command here, that's the color map. That's the player number. That's the time off between, so that's where it turns off the background, then it waits 35 milliseconds, then it shows the command. That's the reload command, or the reload kind of sequence delay. That's the high count. Then this is the other groups. So I just put 0, 1, 2 in. So then I think I have some examples down here. Yeah. So here I have example here. So you can see I have an ammo. Then I'm using group 0. Then I have background command. Then I have revolver. Then I have everything again. Then I have 1 and 2, right? Then damage, as you can see, is on 1. Recoil is on 1. Life, which is death, is on 1 here too. So now you can see where it's happening. So that's why you have to put 1 and 2 in there. So then it knows, hey, 1 and 2. So it should, since you put the 0 first and declare this first, it should automatically know 1 and 2 are kind of on the same pins and work a lot faster. If you didn't, then it will have to search saying, hey, are you using 1? Are you using 2? Then okay, then send it to the background. So that's kind of example of the background. And also I forgot to tell people that I did put in the color map. So here's the sequence color map and talking about it. Then the reload sequence color map here in the documentation. Then also the random flash color map here too. So that's kind of how the background kind of works and how you put it in. So right now it's not in the test light controller window, so I'll probably put that in, probably in the next revision if I can, since it's kind of weird. It kind of works in the background, but I think I can make it work with the test window. Then when the game ends, so it knows when the game ends, then it will clear out all the background. It will shut down the background, turn off all the lights for it too, and that's in the deconstructor too. Then kind of like I said, the group file and the game file has been updated with everything. So like you saw here, I've updated it. Like here is talking about how you invert the data here with the little squiggly line or the tilde at the end. Then general commands, I have turn light off. Then it, like I showed you, it has the color maps. The one thing I kind of want to show is for the regular lights, there isn't, this command has been removed. The random flash 2i has been removed. And also I got to update these to remove the intensity. So I'll do that before I'll release everything too. So now probably the people with the regular lights have to change their game file and default file, like I said, to remove this intensity since it's not used anymore. And I kind of got rid of this since we're not using intensity anymore. So it kind of made this command kind of useless. So this, like I said, is not used anymore. But I'll make sure I'll update that, then everything will be updated on the release. Okay, so for, let me fix this, for the roadmap, so what's going to be happening in the future? So now that I got the background command, so I still need to do it for regular lights, so I plan to do that in 1.2.9. And that will kind of end the majority of the kind of the roadmap I had for the lights light controller right now, until I start knowing kind of more and other commands. And also I plan to put in support for the pack drive, UHID, and BlueHID. So now that I've gotten everything done, and also got regular lights converted to state, it could be a lot easier to do because I already have the states done. Then I can just add that on to the pack drive or the UHID or the BlueHID. That'll make it pretty easy. So I just need to get that in. And also it uses, it only has two commands that you use for it to turn lights on and off. So it has a double byte, so it's 16 bits. So you write those 16 bits, then those bits are tied to the 16 lights. Since there is no intensity for those, you just turn them on and off. It'll be really easy to do. Since I did all the heart, like I said, I did all the heart stuff first, it makes it a lot easier to do this. Of course, I don't have a pack driver UHID, but Ultimark, the person, Andy, who runs it, said he could give it to me, but I was like, I think I can probably get it done without much trouble. So I think when I release it, I'll probably need people to test it out to make sure it's working. Then if there's a lot of problems, then I'll get test hardware from Andy. But I think I can pretty much get it in. So that kind of the two things I'll get in. So once I finish out the background command for regular lights and get support for the pack drive UHID and BlueHID, that will kind of get everything done. Then the last thing maybe I was thinking to do is for the background commands to make it have like another background command but be RGB but use states and not intensity. But the problem with that, I could only use pretty much 7 colors, right? Because you only can turn it on and off. So then I would only have red, green, blue, yellow, purple, cyan, and if all of them are on, it will be white, right? So red, green, and blue that's only if one is on. Then yellow, purple, cyan, that's if 2 are on. Then white is all on. Of course, you have none of them on, that's black, but we don't put that on. And of course, the reason why to do that, because the background is a lot of writes going back and forth. It could speed it up again by 8x, so it could get rid of maybe some flickering that's happening, but I'll see if people want it or not. It might be cool to do because then it'll act so fast, but it will just limit the colors down to 7. But that will wrap up support for the Ultimark devices and kind of for the roadmap. I still have probably a lot more to do for regular lights. And even with like with the background, let's say, now that I have the background in color maps, a cool thing to do maybe for not for light guns, but for other things. I know they do for, I think, an LED blinky is when you're using an emulator, you light up the buttons that are being used. So now that I have the background light command and the color maps, I can easily do that. So if I know the emulator and all that, then I can light up the buttons that are being used for that emulator. So that'd be a cool thing to do kind of later on. So I know that's more like in the future, but I'd say I have a lot more in the future. And also one thing I wanted to show, if you go to Ultimark website for the PAC LED 64, if you come down here to light application software, you'll now see Hook of the Reaper here, which is cool. So now it's in there showing support for it, which is cool. Okay, so also what's going on for the future? So I reached out to RPG Electronics. I know some people have asked me, requested to do the new RPG Brooks Arcade encoder board. So I talked to the owner, and he was like, "Yeah, we can send you test hardware." So once he gets them back in supply, because they're sold out right now. So that's looking in probably in late March. So, but the thing is, it doesn't look like there's any SDK or like a library to do the USB writes. So they have the information on how to do the USB writes, but there's no library or SDK for it. So I would have to write all that out by hand, which is, not the easiest thing to do, but it's doable. But also the good thing, if I do that, then I might reuse it for other Brook devices, because I know Brooks has other boards too, and I think it's the same for those boards too, same kind of format. So I might be able to reuse that. So that's really cool to actually talk with the owner and actually get test hardware for it, since that's kind of the new board coming out. So I done the Ultimark, then I can do like the new board coming out too with it to do the light controller stuff. But it seems if I wrap this up, even know how I'm going and how fast I'm going, I might have some time in between it. So I might probably slow down maybe a little, but if I don't, I'm still thinking until I get the test equipment, plan on doing the addressable LEDs, kind of like what I talked about. But this will, take a long time because I'm pretty much have to code out the whole controller code for the addressable LEDs. Like I said, I would probably use a Raspberry Pi Pico. So then I have to write the code for it to communicate from the Pico and the Hook of the Reaper. The good thing is the Pico supports 1 millisecond USB 2 polling. So I'll probably try to do it with USB 2 1 millisecond polling. And also the Pico can write to the WS2812B lights interface. It has a programmable state I/O machine, so you can program it to write to the interface of the addressable lights, like the WS2812B, and they have it set up in code already in the library to do that. So that will help out kind of a lot. So a lot of it's just more communication between Hook of the Reaper and the controller, and just setting up that one light pin in the lights. Of course, if I do it, the code will be open source, be on my GitHub, free to everybody. But if I'm doing this and I get the test equipment from RPG Electronics, then I'm going to stop working on it, immediately. And the reason, of course, is if RPG Electronics is being nice enough to send me test equipment, then I shouldn't, I should try to do it, immediately. I'm not, if I'm still doing Ultimark, I'll probably finish Ultimark, then go. But I think there's probably no chance I probably haven't wrap up Ultimark before that's done. But I just want, if a company's nice enough to send me test equipment, I should do the right thing and start working on it right away if I don't have other commitments with other companies before that. But it seems like I'll be wrapping up, like I said, the commitments with Ultimark, and then can start with RPG Electronics. So that's kind of, if I do have some time, I'll probably work on that. But I don't think I'll probably finish it before I'll get the test equipment from them. But that's kind of what the roadmap and what it's looking like right now. So, like a couple things I told people to tell me if they want the stuff or not, or but that's it. So, like I said, it was a long one. It's like 50 minutes into it now. So people made it all the way to the end. Yeah, you guys are the best. Thanks. But I'll end it here. Take care. Bye.